everyone. We're going to be reading Chapter 9 of My Life as a Broken Bungee Cord. Chapter 9 is called Tests of Faith. Wally, can you hear me? Come in, Wally, come in. I reached down to the walkie-talkie. I knew I had to sound calm. I knew I had to sound relaxed. Maybe a little McDougal humor would lighten things up. I pressed the key and screamed, "Help!" So much for humor. "Oh, it's okay, Wally. We can handle it. We can handle it." "What do you mean, we?" I shouted. "I'm the one stuck up here." "And I'm the one stuck down here." He gave a couple of bone-rattling coughs. "And if we don't work together, we'll both be stuck for good." Well, okay, if he wanted to be that way about it. "You look like you're up about 900 or 1,000 feet. How fast are you rising?" "I'm not rising," I said. "I'm not moving at all." "Of course you are. Look down at your barometer." "My whatometer?" "The gauge to your right." I looked down at the 3 gauges on the inside of the basket. "Which direction is the little arrow pointing?" he asked. "Up or down?" "Up," I answered. "It's on the 300. "That's too fast. You're climbing too fast." "No," I argued. "I'm not moving at all. I don't feel a thing." "You don't go by feelings up there, Wally. You go by gauges." "But trust them." "But if I don't feel anything..." "That's what I'm saying. It's just like what you were preaching about faith last night. You don't go by what you feel. You go by what your gauges say. Up there, those gauges are your Bible. You've got to believe them and nothing else." "And what if I see? What if I feel?" "Don't mean a thing. You just trust those gauges like you're supposed to trust God." "Now who's preaching?" I quipped. Miguel gave a little laugh. "For the next few hours, we better all believe." He coughed a couple times and continued. "Now take that parachute line above your head and give it a little tug. We're going to let out some air and get you to drift back over here." I gave the rope a tug. The balloon bumped slightly, but nothing else seemed to happen. I tried again, holding it down longer this time. Still nothing. "Look at your variometer," he said. "What does it read?" I glanced down at the gauge. "It's starting to point down, but that can't be right. Nothing's happened. I don't feel..." "Don't trust your feelings, Wally. Trust those gauges." "Okay," I sighed, "but it doesn't seem right." "Don't worry. You're doing fine. Just fine." "It's obviously a new definition of fine," I cracked. "Just hang on, man. You can do this." And he was right. Slowly, as I trusted the gauges instead of my feelings, we began to make progress. Not all at once, mind you. After all, we're still dealing with Wally McDougal, dorkoid extraordinaire. That's French for extraordinary. But gradually, things started to click. Gradually, Miguel was able to guide me in and out of the right air currents by firing the burner or letting out air until I was able to stay in the general area, give or take a few miles. "Any sign of a plane yet?" Miguel asked. Several more minutes had passed and he was sounding a lot weaker. I looked around. According to the altimeter, I was about 800 feet up. It looked like I could see forever. Unfortunately, forever didn't include any planes. "Listen," Miguel said between coughs, "I'm going to have to turn you over to Sis. More coughing, I need to take a break." "You going to be all right?" I asked in concern. "Don't worry about me," he coughed again. "Just keep an eye on those instruments." "Gotcha." "Hey, Wally." It was Wall Street. For someone who should be bummed, she sounded pretty good. "What's happening?" "Not much," I answered. "Just another typical day in the life of Wally McDougal." "You're doing great," she said. "We're all really proud of you." I gave a shrug, thankful that walkie-talkies don't show blushing. "How's Opera?" I asked. "He's out in the woods getting more firewood." "By himself?" I practically shouted. "Isn't he afraid of being attacked by a crazed chipmunk or a herd of slugs or something?" She giggled. "I guess your faith is kind of contagious, Wally." More blushing. I tried to change the subject. "How's your brother?" I asked. "He's sounding a lot worse." "He is," she agreed. Her voice had a little quiver to it, but it also had a little strength. "Me and Opera, we're praying for him, Wally. We're praying real hard." I nodded and said nothing, except a quiet prayer of my own. Things had really turned around. Here I was, super chicken of heights, flying up in the air, flying on my own. There was Opera, super chicken of the woods, actually by himself, and Wall Street was back to praying again. I tell you, if God was making a point about trusting him, he wasn't doing a half-bad job. Now, if he could just do something about... Then I heard it, ever so faintly. What's that? I asked. What's what? Wall Street asked back over the walkie-talkie. I scanned the sky, giving a quick 360. At first I saw nothing. Then I spotted it. A plane! I shouted. A plane, and it's coming this way! Stay put. It was Miguel's voice again, weaker than ever. They've probably seen the balloon. They're coming to investigate. Great! I cried. All I have to do is float over you guys and they'll see where... Don't do a thing, Miguel said. Just stay where you are. They'll find us. Yeah, but... Stay there, Wally. You've come this far. Don't blow it now. I gave a heavy sigh, careful to leave my finger down on the key so he could hear it. The plane continued to drone toward me. Closer and closer it came. I was getting a little nervous. The thing had two very sharp-looking propellers, and I wasn't crazy about either one of them. I hadn't worked this hard to be chopped up in some plane-o-matic. Finally, the plane dipped its wing and circled around me. It was about time. The best I could make out, there were 4 people inside. I waved. They waved. I pointed toward the road. They pointed toward the road. I pointed some more. They pointed some more. Come on, guys, this isn't Simon Says, I shouted as I kept jabbing my finger toward the road. Finally, someone in the cockpit figured it out. Rocket scientists, these guys weren't. The plane veered to the left and headed in the direction I pointed. We all waited. A few seconds later, they swooped down and made a tight little turn. They found us, Wall Street shouted through the radio. They found us! I could hear them clapping and yelling. We did it, I shouted back. We did it. Not quite. It was Miguel. What do you mean? We still have to get you down. Oh, that. How much fuel you got? I looked at the gauge of the last propane tank. It's almost empty. What do I do? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I said. What type of order is uh-oh? Miguel coughed again. Look, Wally, you're going to have to find a place, any place, to set her down. Now. But now, Wally. Drop her down now so you have fuel to break your fall. Drop? Break? Fall? I didn't like the sound of this one bit. Maybe I could get back to your road, I said as I reached up and fired the burner. Maybe I can... Save your fuel, Wally. But save it. I released the lever. Now pull down your parachute cord. Start letting air out. I did and shouted, Where am I going? Look for a break in the trees, any opening at all. The balloon started to rotate. Miguel, I'm spinning. Let up on the cord. You're falling too fast. Fire the burner. I let go of the cord and fired the burner. After a second or two, it started to sputter. Then, suddenly, the roar stopped. So did the flame. So did my heart. Miguel! Throw out the fuel tanks. Dump any extra weight you can find. I quickly unstrapped the fuel tanks and started throwing them over the side. Bombs away! It helped, but not enough. The variometer said I was heading down, and heading down too fast. Now what? I shouted. No answer. Miguel! Crouch down in the basket. Protect your head. What? You're going to crash, Wally. With any luck, you'll hit the trees and they'll break your fall. Hit the trees? That's what we've been trying to avoid. Do it, Wally. Just trust me and do it. I took one last look over the edge. Well, if he wanted trees, I had trees. Millions of them. And by the way they were racing at me, I knew we were about to become close friends. Too close. I crouched down. Help him, God. Keep him safe. I checked my mouth, but I wasn't saying the words. It came from the radio. It was Miguel. Praying. For me. Granted, it wasn't the world's greatest prayer, but I figured I needed all the help I could get. I managed to squeak out a feeble amen. And just in time. Scrape! Scratch! Crunch! I was thrown across the basket. Wally, can you hear me? Crunch, scratch, scrape. I was thrown to the other side. Wally! Crunch, snap, splinter. Back and forth I went. It was like a giant ping pong match with me as the ball. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. Completely. Nothing but dead silence. Speaking of dead, I had to admit I was a little disappointed. As far as I could tell, heaven looked just like Earth. No golden streets, no choir, no hot heart band, just me and these trees. And, Wally, it was the walkie-talkie. Wally, can you hear me? Great, I muttered. All that hard work and I'm still alive. I got to my knees and worked up enough courage to peer over the edge. In appreciation of my heroics, the basket gave a tip forward and fell another 15 feet. Ah! Still, no ground. After a few more screams and a lot more prayers, I figured it didn't hurt to stock up on them. I worked up the courage to look over the edge again. The basket was still 30 feet from the ground. Only this time it wasn't doing any more falling. This time the trees had us in a tight death grip. Better make that life grip. We didn't move. Not an inch. Well, except for the mild swaying of the basket as it rocked back and forth in the breeze. Boy, do I know to have a vacation or what. Now, if I just had a Diet Coke and a TV remote, of course a TV to go with the remote wouldn't be bad, and a hotel to go with the TV. But hey, at least I had my life. Good old God, he did it again. And that's the end of chapter 9. We have one more chapter, and that's chapter 10. It's called Wrapping Up. So until then, bye.